Hello everyone, welcome back to Spinning Iris. Time to get back in the swing of things. It's tough when seasonal allergies and nasty head cold and just exhaustion knock you on your butt. So yeah, time to catch up a little bit. What better place to catch up with than the BookTube Spin tag number 2, which I didn't do my book review for yet. And that book was C.S. Lewis's Till We Have Faces. Oddly enough, this was the first C.S. Lewis book I've ever read. I believe I tried reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when I was really young, and my brain was just not ready for it. This one I found at the library fundraiser. And what piqued my interest was its relation to Greek mythology, and yeah, piqued that fascination. So much so, I ended up with 2 copies. Not on purpose. In fact, of the 2 covers, I like this one the best because it relates a little bit more to the actual story. It's just this beautiful stained glass appearance on one side and sort of a continuation on the other side. This one, it's just a face just kind of staring off at nothing. Nice picture, but it doesn't really have much to do in the way of what the story is about, which I'll get to. So this one was basically my reading copy. The basis for this story was inspired by the story of Cupid and Psyche, as it was told in another collection of, I guess, Greek stories from a Roman named Apelles in his work, The Golden Ass, which I have a copy of somewhere. I don't know where. And the story of Cupid and Psyche is basically one of the oldest Beauty and the Beast stories ever told. And apparently Lewis was inspired to write this novel because he wasn't satisfied with the way that that particular story was told, and it kind of followed him throughout his life and his career, and culminated in this beautiful novel. I love the way this novel is written. It's like a memoir, sort of, a personal record or a personal history. The narrator is Oriwal, who is the half-sister of Psyche, and sort of surrogate mother and eventual queen in this book. And she's described by others, most notably her own father, the king, as ugly. Just sort of horrifyingly ugly, where Psyche is sort of the opposite and the personification of beauty. And the story, it's told in a sort of basis of reality, with the mythological elements sort of dropped in naturally, surprisingly. And it's mythological, it's philosophical, it's very emotional. It's a simple story, but it is so full, it's so rich. It's definitely one I'd be willing to read again. No joke. There are some interesting times in here where the language is a little strange, like it was being translated, but which I think was done on purpose, given that the narrator is not Greek, but is, I'm assuming, writing this in Greek for the intelligent Greek-speaking reading populace, who will eventually find her record down the line. There's some intriguing discussions about faith and religion and different kinds of love. Part 1 makes up most of the novel and reads rather straightforward, Oriwal giving her side of the Psyche story, which by the end of her time is a famous story, as she finds in a sort of hidden shrine while on a grand tour. It's basically her telling her own story, her side of the story, her own story, in her own words, in her own perspective, no matter how twisted or inaccurate it might be. And we do see Ortiwell grow and change. Perhaps not for the better, but in a way for her to mentally handle the things that she's seen and had to deal with. Part 1, again, it's Ortiwell's life, her own upbringing, Psyche coming into the world, and then being her surrogate mother, as well as her sister, sort of forced into watching her being sacrificed, just to find her again, and then to ultimately lose her again. And then her journey, sort of blind journey as a queen for her people. And part 1 has a logical, if abrupt, ending, which is rather appropriate for the character and the story being told. Part 2 is considerably shorter, and is definitely a little bit different in tone. Again, understandable. It's basically Ortiwell continuing her story after going back and looking at what she previously wrote and things that happened in her life up to that point. Especially towards the end, there's a definite dreamy quality to how it ends. It's more of Ortiwell's reflection on her life and what she wrote before, her revelations, if you will, about herself, her own journey and how it paralleled with Psyche, her comparisons of herself to the named goddess in this particular world, sort of self-involved and versus the selfless love that's displayed by both her and Psyche. Again, it's definitely a novel I'm willing to read again, if only to figure out things that I missed the first time around. But mostly, again, because I enjoy this kind of story, this sort of pseudo-Greek mythology and retellings of famous stories. The mythology bound to reality, magic, and nature. It's written in a way that makes sense, like the characters act and sound like they belong in this world that's created for them. But given the reputation of C.S. Lewis as a writer, I expected nothing less than excellence from this, and I got an enjoyable story. Well, it does play around, again, with the ideas of faith and religion. It doesn't sort of throw them in your face. They're very subtle, so you can take what you want from it. And these little tabulations, nothing bad, just sort of passages that I found interesting and wanted to remember and maybe revisit. Then I looked at Ungit herself. She had not, like most sacred stones, fallen from the sky. The story was that at the very beginning she had pushed her way up out of the earth, a foretaste of, or an ambassador from, whatever things may live and work down there one below the other all the way down under the dark and weight and heat. I have said she had no face, but that meant she had 1,000 faces, for she was very uneven, lumpy, and furrowed, so that, as when we gaze into a fire, you could always see some face or other. She was now more rugged than ever because of all the blood they had poured over her in the night. In the little clots and chains of it I made out a face. A fancy at one moment, but then, once you had seen it, not to be evaded. A face such as you might see in a loaf, swollen, brooding, infinitely female. A good line in there. Lots of good stuff. Alright, so that was the BookTube Spin Tag number 2. I'm about halfway through Spin Tag number 3 in terms of reading. I'm going to put off one of the books I had planned to do for that one, mostly because time constraints. Save it for Spin Tag 4, maybe. But yeah, September's coming, which means Man Book Month is coming, and gotta get started reading those 2 books very soon. See what I can come up with for September. I've also got a few more reviews to do, unrelated to the Spin Tag, of course. So yeah, things to look forward to. And with that, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.